Welcome to a new series from the Three of Us Modular Podcast called Modular Podcast Features, where the three of us, along with the designer or manufacturer, we take a look at a specific module, share some patches, some insight into the design and how we've been using it. Today we've got Andrew from QBit. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me.
We'll be talking about Contour. Let's quickly just go down the line, see how everyone is. Greg, you were worse for wear after a gig last night?
Yeah, I was out with my friend Guy Barato. Was playing Dublin, so went to the gig, met up with him, had a couple of beers. So yeah, I'm a little hungover. Apologies in advance if I don't know where I am halfway through this.
He's the reason you missed Super Booth last year. Similar thing, right?
Yeah.
Dublin.
Yes. Yeah, he plays Dublin, plays the same club in Dublin once a year. It's good to catch up with him again.
Yeah, cool. And Matthew, how's it going?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. Just been working on some more bug brand patches today.
I'm going to say there's no new format in the background that I can see.
Yeah, just been having some real fun with the bug brand at the moment. Like I say, working on just building up a sort of library of sounds with that at the moment for release. But yeah, just done a few more this weekend.
Cool. So we're going to look at, and I'll screen share it for those that haven't seen what this actually is yet, although I'm sure most have, the Contour for looping envelopes, some extra features and things in there. Andrew, do you want to sort of kick us off? Idea behind the module in terms of how it slots into your line of modules or what you were looking for out of an envelope module?
Sure. So the concept initially came for the Contour a little after we had released the Chord, which is our polyphonic oscillator, for those who may or may not know. And the Chord came out, and I had all these really interesting, exciting ideas for patches that I hadn't been able to accomplish yet in my synthesis explorations, and they all involved a lot of envelopes. So, I was really excited, and I'd patch all these things up, but I was finding I was running out of envelopes constantly in every patch, and so I was thinking, why don't we just make something that will handle that, solve that issue, and I can pair it directly with the Chord, and I won't run out of envelopes constantly. And so that was really the impetus for the design overall. And so that's where really the quad architecture concept came from. The Chord has 4 individual outputs. The Contour has 4 individual envelopes. And then from there, it was all about really refining and deciding what the key features for a single channel of the whole module would be. What do we have to have? What can we leave out for this particular implementation? And then working from there. And so we really dialed it into what we thought were crucial elements that an envelope has to have, like CV over attack and decay, a tenuverter on the output, and then really finessing just the way it functions overall, like the range of the envelopes. It has to go from 5 milliseconds all the way to how long. In this case, we decided 20 minutes was kind of where we wanted to wind up with the overall length, so that it would never be restricted when you're trying to do these polyphonic ambient pads and things like that. And then from there, we really wanted to dial in this linking functionality, which I think really makes it stand out as a pretty unique envelope, is the way that you can chain all these things together and have it run without being triggered. And so that was really just the finishing touches that we put on it to make it a bit deeper and a bit more versatile overall.
Yeah, nice. That's essentially the show in a minute soundbite. Nice. Just before we dig deeper into this, I'd like to touch on, you mentioned in wanting this sort of quad concept. We certainly all privately, and I think a lot of people did publicly, sort of jumped on this idea of you going quad with everything when it was all shown at NAMM. What was it about that sort of spoke to you? I mean, I love modules that offer lots of the same thing. It saves me buying 2. And I don't mind things being bigger and more expensive rather than buying 2. I like just, here's a bunch of whatever it is, oscillators, quantizer voices, anything like that. I mean, looking at the modules, again, I'll pull these back up. It all essentially is, as you said, quad. We've got the 4 different outputs on chance, 4 channels on the mixer, 4 envelopes, as you said, 4 rhythms, 4 samples on wave, or 4 voices of sampling on wave anyway. Chord. So is that just from your sort of personal musical background, how you like to patch, or something else?
It is a little bit of my personal preference, but it's also, I did a lot of thinking about what is the right number to have in modules like this, where you could see yourself using multiple versions of it in a system. You know, to me, 3 is too few, 5 is kind of too many to put on a single module, and 4 is really what you need most of the time. And like when I'm patching, if I have random voltage, 4 unique types of random voltage is kind of the perfect amount, and that's how we wound up with 4 unique outputs on the chance. And similar as far as like envelopes go, you know, and like the chord has the 4 voices. A lot of the time you only want to hear 4 things at a time. That's a decent amount, you know, and it just seems like the right happy medium between not being overly complex in a single unit, but saving you from having to have 2 versions of something.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think quad VCAs was where that sort of first came about.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah, having a quad VCA module was always really useful in a rack.
Yeah, when they sort of came out a couple of years ago, more of these sort of quad VCAs, it just started to feel right in a strange way, which is sort of why we brought that up. Another really nice thing, but fairly minor, I guess, but not in its potential application, is, as you said, the attenuator on the output. Really helps for self-patching when you're not having to go out to a VCA or an attenuator or inverter or little passive inline attenuators or anything. How did the idea for the chaining come around? Because that's slightly different. Rather than an end of cycle, end of rise, end of fall, that's done differently.
Yeah, the linking came from actually a personal favorite patch of mine. It was really the first thing, actually kind of one of the initial reasons we made the chord as well. Is I used to do it in Max MSP ages ago before Eurorack, where I would set up 4 oscillators, each tuned to a chord degree, and then I'd run that, I would control the volume, each with a free running LFO that was modulating the volume, right? So once I got into modular, I started running the outputs of the chord through VCAs, and then I needed 4 envelopes to open up these VCAs, but then I would also need to trigger these envelopes or have them looping at different times and whatnot. But what was really fascinating about being able to chain things in line is these unique rhythmic articulations that you can get, and then the quickness at which you can modify and get to weird territories, since it's all tied together without, you know, anything else, any external modules. And so that was really the inspiration for the chaining, was just being able to link these things together in sort of this ambient patch that's opening up different voices of an oscillator or a chord or whatnot. But then from there, I mean, we've seen it all over the place. You know, the various ways that people have been using it are always surprising to me. It's been really rewarding to see that.
At this point, I'll just point out that there's a really nice manual, which I know a lot of people don't like reading manuals, but I do. Not that one at all. I don't mean, oh, let's get the manual out and let's dig really deep, but I'll just sort of quickly scroll through it. It's just nice to be able to, and I tend to do it when a module's on its way rather than when I've got it. I like to kind of swat up before.
Yeah, me too. There's a lot to be said for it. You know, there's all this thing of this kind of gun-ho attitude of, oh, I don't read the manual, and that's fine. But, you know, you could just be missing out on a ton of really good functionality if you don't.
Yeah, exactly that. It's just nice that there is one.
But having said that, there are some very, very terrible manuals out there, you know, that push people away from reading them. But this is really kind of clear and concise. Yeah,
that's what I meant. That, you know, as this is on its way, fire this up, quickly get some ideas. You know how it all works really quickly without even having it in your hands. And yeah, it just does good stuff. So the 3 of us have made patches to sort of demo this module in various different styles. Do one of you two want to kick off sort of your patch? Talk us through what you were doing with it. Do you want to do it, Greg, before you pass out if you're still drunk?
Yeah, go on. I'll do my one first.
people can check these out. There'll be links in the description for the audio and everything else, but I'll pull the image up. Idea for the patch?
Like what we were saying, 4 channels. You've got 4 channels on most of the qubit stuff, so I wanted to use those 4 channels, or most of them, as many as I could. It's still sounding fairly okay. With the cord, I ran it through the Ring SM, which is great. That's the kind of distorted sound that you hear with it.
All right.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. With this patch, so it's going out to 2 filters. You have parts of it going out to 2 filters, and then into effects, with the sends from the mixology going out to the effects. So that's the kind of delay and reverb that you hear. It's Halls of Valhalla and a delay on the Black Hole DSP.
All right.
What I'd really liked with this, and it's how you've used the other qubit things as well, Greg, is that actually all 4 voices go somewhere else and the mix output. I love it when you're hearing just a personal musical sort of preference, I guess, when you're hearing voices in a chord that don't ever quite all hit together to give you that, here's a stacked -7 chord or whatever the chord is. But then occasionally one just creeps in somewhere. I think that's the highlight of the whole range, not just the content.
Well, I do it a lot. I know Andrew knows I patch a lot with the qubit stuff. My Instagram is just full of this kind of patch, really. So this is pretty typical of the way I'll patch chord. So yeah, it never crosses, and you've got those big knobs as well. It's really physical with chord as well. I like to not send as much CV in and get really hands-on with it as well. Yeah, because that left waveform one, as it goes down, I mean, it's really, really smooth. It's like a filter on its own. So as it moves from less harmonics to the harmonically rich ones like the sawtooth and the square wave, it's almost like filtering. Yeah. So it's really nice. I like to use it really hands-on that way. As with all the stuff, big knobs and easy to get in. Yeah. Cool.
I was going to ask what Chance was doing modulation, but as Andrew's bought into our idea of this sort of features show where we all get to present patches and ideas alongside talking to Andrew, we're going to do the next features show on Chance soon.
Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about that. Just
that's a teaser bit for that. We're gonna we'll come back with a vengeance with Chance.
Really enjoying it. It's become one of my favorite modules. That really enjoying it.
We're both a bit jealous, I think. Matthew's Mr. Random Modulation. I think he's a bit upset.
Yeah.
Just having the freeze and the coin toss is, you can change your whole patch by just keep hitting that coin toss. You can change everything with one button, which is really great.
Yeah, nice. We should give a quick shout out. Don't want to deviate too far from this being about Contour, but the Ring SM from AGH Synth, it just sounds stunning. People will hear it in the patch. You managed to get it quite stable in terms of the sub-octaves it's generating.
It took a lot of tweaking. That it's not easy to get stable, especially with chord, but took me just that position. You turn a knob in any direction slightly and it's gone. It took me a long time to get that as stable as that.
Yeah, we should say that's not through any fault of the module. It tracks really accurate subs. Yeah. Like any sub-generating circuit, when the waveform is moving, be that a stacked chord, so there's several frequencies running at once, or a wavetable, that zero crossing point moves and the sub kind of locks onto different harmonics. You can almost make it generate a bass line for you that way, but
you can, yeah.
But if you've got really complex stuff going on, it can be a little frustrating.
Yeah.
So yeah, link's going to be in this for Greg's patch. The link will be in the description. We'll put a link up to this image as well. Very different from the sort of disco-ish dance patch. What about you, Matthew? Your idea for the 2 patches you did?
Yeah, I had just great fun using this, particularly with the patch with the Akemi's Castle, which again kind of cries out for lots of modulation inputs. Basically, this was my kind of thing, which I like to do, which is a self-generation patch. So once this was set up, I had no involvement in tweaking this particular one. I did on the second one. But yeah, this one I've got kind of the envelopes using the linking function, and they're all loops as well. So you're getting, each envelope is cross-modulating each other, and then sending out its CV to control the Akemi's castle.
Yeah, I really like that when it was you that introduced me to the idea a while ago about envelopes being timing mechanisms, but very fluid timing mechanisms as you modulate them with another envelope that's looping, and then maybe have that fire off a third envelope that's not looping but goes back to CV the second one, and you create this sort of feedback timing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not something. I mean, it's certainly more common in sort of the surge land, as it were. Using envelopes as a timing source, where most people will think, when people ask me, what we're using as your clock source, and I'll say, these envelopes. They'll go, why? Why don't you get a clock? But no, you can have so much more fun, particularly in a patch like this, where you're getting them kind of crossing into each other and colliding, and you can get all sorts of nice kind of random smooth areas happening. Yeah, and I mean there's some amplitude modulation as well, just opening and closing the VCA. And I'm also controlling the on the Modcan dual delay. There's the filter which I'm opening and closing on there as well.
Yeah, again, this sounds great. Link all the links in the description for those wondering what this sounds like. Akemi's Castle, yeah, it's one of those where Contour's perfect because you've a sound source that is begging to just have modulation thrown at it. I'd say like the WMD, PDO, or even some of the effects like the DLD or Rainmaker or Echoform from Make Noise even, they're dying for just plenty thrown at it.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, did you try, what operator algorithm was this on?
It was either the first or second.
Okay, so
I can't actually remember off the top of my head, but it was either first or second operator.
Okay, I was going to say there's a sort of smoothness to it that I thought what you were going to say, that where they're split, the first and second, and then third and fourth operators are like two different pairs.
Yeah.
So one will stay more static while you modulate the other.
Yeah.
But yeah, sounds really good. Is there no other effect than the Modcan delay?
Yeah, no other effect. Yeah, just the delay itself. Yeah, on the second one I did, I took a similar approach, but this time rather than letting the contour do things automatically, as it were, I decided to get hands-on with this, which is a bit unusual for me. But yeah, I was just kind of opening and closing. Again, they're looped. All the envelopes are looped, but I was just kind of adjusting the attack and decay of those, and basically scanning through the morphing terrarium's waves. But again, I really like the fact, Andrew mentioned it, and I think this is one of probably the most overlooked things within Euro is attenuation. It's just such a simple thing, but it's so powerful. You just think, no one gets really excited about attenuators, but they're one of the most useful things in modular, and really kind of help your patching, I think.
On a side note, I've just put them all away, so I can't grab them. On a attenuator splurge, I found an old, is it the UAT, the IntelliGel quad passive attenuator? Got the new WMD and SSF one, and another Bonk at. Just before that, there's so many modules that you just need to bung just a little attenuator next to it. that I thought, well, why not just get a load? Because they don't.
Oh yeah, they're just perfect. I mean, well, you guys know I've got my live case, and I made some. It's a Dofa case. I took out the plywood at the top and the bottom, stuck a mixer in one corner, and then put attenuators on at the bottom. It just means that the functionality of that live case is vastly increased, you know. And yeah, so yeah, I was using that a lot. So I'm scanning through the waves on that, and then I'm also controlling the pingable envelope generators, envelope shapes as well by the contour, and then also modulating clouds is basically the effect within everything. So yeah, that was great. They could really make some kind of, you know, ambient atmospheres with that. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. What's really nice with those attenuators on contour is just putting a knobless VCA next to it as well.
All right.
You know, just jacks, nice little sim VCA. It doesn't need them. Attenuate the envelopes going in, and I like doing that. In that you can sort of almost double the amount of modulation if you're modulating the rate of the envelopes with each other, and then their amplitude with another. You can create so much overlapping sort of. It all feels alive. It all kind of just wraps around itself, and I like how. And you've certainly done it with your patching, Matthew. That I did a little bit in mine as well, where say the envelope that's opening up a filter or an FM amount is also maybe just panning something slightly or just opening the tone on an effect. And you just get this kind of, because they're all modulating each other, it isn't so obvious. It's not like one envelope that everything, you know, filter opens, reverb gets bigger, release time goes up and closes. You've all these sort of intertwining kind of things going on. Works really well. I'll pull up the patch that I did. I ended up not being quite as simple as I wanted to. I had the intention of doing 2 patches. No brownie points for me like you there, if you doing 2.
It just so happened I just thought, right, on to the next one, you know, so I just did it.
Well, I wanted to do one really simple, and then one, I knew you'd do it anyway, so I almost didn't need to, because I knew you'd present that really well. And as you can see, it's not so simple. The basic idea of the patch that I did was, in terms of contours use at the core of it, in terms of how I built the patch, is very simple. One envelope is going to a VCA. There's 3 oscillators, which are the IntelliGel Dixes in the corner, and a filter. One envelope opens the VCA, the other one opens the filter. They're both clocked just 16th notes, really basic kind of slowish techno thing. But then using the other 2 envelopes to modulate decay time, and having one that's linear and one that's exponential, and their timing's been slightly different, mean that because the filter's not closing fully, the sort of low end opens and closes with this decay time changing on the VCA envelope, and then the filter opens and closes sort of almost on top of, separate to the VCA. So sometimes the filter's cut off quite quickly, but there's still quite a lot of low end left. At other times, VCA is cutting off quite quickly, but because the filter envelope's longer than that one, it just lets all the sort of high end through. Right. And those 2 extra sort of contour envelopes having the attenuator meant I could invert one, I could attenuate the other, and just really play around with how they interact. From there, as you can see, the patch kind of grew. It's more complicated than it needs to be. I could have gone about these sounds much simpler. Once I'd done that, I thought, I'll just build this patch up, and it blossomed from there. The PDO and 2 MME envelopes from WMD are just making a kick. One envelope to pitch, one GCA. So to use a PDO and 2 of those for a kick is fairly excessive, but it's just what was around in the case. And then from there, I built up the snare drums, just simply a clock divided, clock hitting peaks, just a snare drum out of peaks, super simple. All been mixed in the performance mixer. I was then going to put a hi-hat sound in, but didn't want to grab noise. So I was messing around with Tides as an oscillator. I thought, what happens if I FM it from the Flight of Harmony imp random generator noise source when it goes up to audio rate? Didn't quite get as aggressive and noise-like as I wanted. I could have just reached for white noise, probably should have done, but then put it in the FM aid for even more kind of grit. That got really nasty. So I thought, this is cool, but I need to tame it. Let's vocode it against something, Immutable Instruments, Warps. And then at that point, it became really tonal. And I thought, well, now this is sort of completely not a hi-hat at all. Let's really modulate it. So the two modulating envelopes on Contour that are moving the VCA time and the filter time are what's actually modulating the top line, the sort of melodic arpeggio type thing. Some random modulation from the SSF Ultra Random going into the ADAT quantizer. I think it's just a -7, C, E flat, G and B flat, if anyone's interested in terms of the notes available. That was actually changing Tides to start with, rather than Warps, so that the sort of carrier information in the vocoding was changing pitch. Well, the modulator wasn't. And then eventually I sort of put it in there as well. Effect was just mutable instrument shelves, rolling off a lot of bottom end, putting a sort of mid boost into the Music Thing modular spring, and then I'll put back into the performance mixer. I was side chaining off those kick drum envelopes as well. There isn't a patch cable there, but one of the amplitude envelope from the kick just went into the Happy Nerding inverter and attenuator, inverted that, put it in against the bass and the top line and the reverb that was coming back in. Just sort of got this pumping, moving, swelling techno thing. But the sort of core of it that I wanted to demo is that there's some panning modulation as well that's coming from the Contour. And as I was saying, like with your patches, Matthew, because it all kind of overlaps each other and there are other modulation sources in the patch, your ear doesn't quite just pick up that it's the same thing modulating lots of different things.
Yeah, it's not like a pure loop that's coming around. You can go, all right, yeah, I can hear it again there, I can hear it again. Yeah, because of the timing, it's almost like it's never going to come round theoretically.
Yeah, it's not like as the filter opens up more, it pans slightly to the right and you kind of just go, all right, yeah, that's what's happening as it's cycling. And that was it. So just to have two locked envelopes and two not that are looping and then spreading that around, it just meant that I could do lots of different things effectively. And it could have kept going. There could be more panning, more effects. And then...
Well, so this is what's great about it, is because, you know, with the three of us have come up with completely different patches. All, you know, this is to me, the very essence, the whole point of this is to show, look, yeah, we've all got the Contour here, and look at this variety of things that you can do with it. To say that it's just an envelope, you know, there's a massive variety of, you know, it's all been, it's the starting block of each of its patches. It all just kind of leapfrogs from there in completely different directions.
Mm. Yeah, exactly that. I think patch-wise, there's nothing else really for me to go at. I kind of performed it, if you like, very hands-on with performance mixer. I mean, a few live sort of knob tweaks on the Contour. Just as Greg said, it lends itself to just actually getting your hands in.
It does, yeah. It's really a module that you could use in every patch, essentially. Because it can be an LFO, it can cycle so long. I mean, you can use it in every patch, essentially. It's been in every patch since I've gotten it anyway.
I've been using it for, yeah, all sorts of different things. It's been next to the performance mixer for a while, in this kind of bottom row of the case there. I've just had it looping, just when patches are going, whether they're rhythmic or ambient or this kind of sort of swelling intertwined thing, just to have something, just to easily grab and shape or looping envelope.
I must admit, when I saw that this was coming out, one of the first things that kind of grabbed me and I just went, yes, was seeing 20 minutes. It was like, yeah, I'm there. I want 20 minutes. You know, and some people may think, oh, that's just ridiculous. But it's just so useful if you're just doing kind of evolving, you know, self-patching stuff is just, it's just so good. You know, you think, oh, I'm not going to use that time. Well, maybe you don't, but just have that event to happen over, you know, you just don't feel constrained by it. Where, you know, as Ben mentioned about something looping round, well, just forget it. You know, if you can spot something after 20 minutes, you know, you're pretty good.
Even something as simple as, and you mentioned this in an email to me, Andrew, something as simple as patching it into the mixology, an inverted envelope for compressor style ducking. Is,
yeah.
really nice to do as well. The type of music I make, it's quite useful.
Well, yeah, in that example of mine, I had to use another device to actually invert my, it wasn't contour, but my bass drum envelope to then get something else, because I'd already sort of used contour up. Maybe need 2, maybe need 8. What I really like with a mixer, though, be it mixology or any other mixer that's got VCA level and pan, is to take 2 envelopes at pretty much 20 minutes. You know, you turn the knobs up full and just back one off slightly, and then invert one and leave one open, and have one sound that just slowly either sweeps in level or pan one way while the other goes. But if one's, you know, you don't know exactly where it is on the knob, but if one's actually 19 minutes and one's 17 minutes, what seemingly is an even sort of pan eventually
starts to drift.
Yeah. And it's that, I almost like leaving it for a while until it's drifted.
Yeah.
So I set it up, go downstairs, make a drink, come back, and then I like that drift. And then when you start CVing them as well, or using those as timing mechanisms for other things.
It's like having 2 physical metronomes and kind of releasing them.
Yeah.
And, you know, going out of sync, and then they eventually kind of come back in again.
Yeah, works really well. Did any of you two, or Andrew, anyone use this up nearer audio rates for anything? Because it'll go there in terms of getting film.
Yeah, I did. I was mentioning it before we were on the show. I tried the great Doug Linner in the Surge world has done like this harmonic oscillation with it. And I tried that, but I decided to go more in this direction, really, more soundscaping.
I find it really... Sorry, Greg, go on.
Oh, there's been times when I'm doing ambient patches when I try and incorporate a little audio rate on 1 or 2 of the channels. If I have everything just kind of looping slowly on the amplitude of like 4 disparate elements, I'll bring in the attack and decay down on 1 channel, and you just get that, you know, into audio rate sound where a little bit of the amplitude modulation, the little harmonic content, and then the rest of it's going rhythmically medium to slow, but then you get these audio rate frequencies that give you these really good timbres kind of in and out.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that, so I've done it into a VCA because at the minute, for some reason, I'm really liking AM modulation over FM when I'm sort of patching up analog voices. But yeah, having that really slow movement that just, and it's nice it's not on a switch. It's really useful when some LFOs have a high and a low or medium, high and low setting. But just from one thing on a big panel, all the way up and back down again.
That's a good point, Ben. There. I mean, I've got some Dofa modules, and I've got the high, low, medium, and yeah, great. That has its place, but I prefer that personally. Having it there is a smooth control.
Have you ever tried to do it where the high mode, you know, goes all the way down, and then you try and flick the switch and quickly go up on the knob again, and then you flick it? It's almost like changing gears in a car. You kind of
it is.
Even back and forth. Great into effects as well. When something that's just slow, that's going into big reverb or delay, goes up to audio and back down again, and then that cascades through your effects chain.
Yeah.
In a sort of effects version of what we've said about these overlapping, and works really well.
Right. It's really good to hear you guys say that about the range, because we spent, I mean, countless hours on just the way the knob felt. That was a huge part of the production. Dialing it in, you know, because it is a problem that when you get 5 milliseconds to 20 minute cycle time, that's all great. But the problem is the way the knob feels and how easy it is to dial in the ranges you want. And so we really took a lot of care. We took just 1,000 different firmware revisions to just nail in which segment of the knob needed to go where and how to get it to feel right. So it's good to hear that it worked out and we didn't need a switch.
That was literally going to be the next thing, to ask how long that took. Because it's, I imagine, Matthew, you found this fairly easy dialing in the longer times. I know I felt I have. But also doing the faster filter stuff, you know, people that go and listen to mine, it kind of just chugging away fairly fast. It was easy to dial in. I never kind of felt like my first experience of this sort of knob functionality is on an amp, on a guitar amp, where one, you can barely hear, and then two, blows your head off when you're on like a 50 watt, 100 watt tube guitar head. And you just can't, there is no in between.
Yeah.
It's on or it's off, and it only gets louder from ear bleeding loud. So it's nice that this is so well sort of tamed. Is there lots of different response curves going on between different areas then?
That's exactly what it is. We kind of broke it up into little segments that we thought represented to us, you know, significant portions that would supposed to fit unique applications, you know, like obviously to the far left, you're going to be doing audio rate stuff or extremely snappy envelopes. We tried to keep that in mind. And then as we moved to the right on the knob, we broke out, okay, well, this section, you'll probably be doing this sort of thing. So this range would be good, you know, tested it, had other people test it, and then just updated the little numbers. But that's what it's doing, is it's just reading the pop value and then rescaling it based on where it's at. And there's a bunch of different zones. And that's why I think we ended up succeeding, is there's so many zones across it. It isn't just one scalar factor. It's actually a lot of zones that we dialed in.
Yeah,
well, yeah, it does. It just feels bang on. It doesn't feel like, oh wow, why am I suddenly in this super fast territory, or why am I, you know, why can't I hear any change? It just feels right.
Good to hear.
The output range as well is higher than some other envelopes, which is where that attenuator comes in. Especially for me, I always, well, not always get frustrated, but when like a low pass gate needs a good 8-10 volts to really strike it, and the peak of my envelope is 5. Amplifiers are rarer to come about than attenuators in a system, so it's nice that this is just really wide ranging. Is there any scaling on that knob as well, the output attenuator?
That's pure analog, so there's no scaling at all. It's just linear.
Yeah, I mean, it's been easy to dial in, so I wondered if there was any going on. Another thing I wanted to ask, is there any scaling of the timing of the envelopes when the shape changes from linear to exponential?
They are the same either way.
Right, yeah. Because usually there's some analog things that it gets faster when the shape changes.
Yeah.
It's nice that it doesn't.
Yeah, that was one thing we had in mind too. It's like, it's a lot easier to have it just update and change the time as you switch between the response curves, because that's the way it wants to behave naturally. And so we made that a point, definitely, to make it, you switch between it, but your overall time isn't going to change. We don't want it to update where you are in the envelope just because you switched the shape. And so that's what we ended up doing, is just making sure that it rescaled appropriately but kept the shape.
Yeah. I've been using that shape function jamming, again, the highlight of this being quad and a nice panel to actually play on, as in a similar way that I'd turn release up on ADSRs when I want things to seem bigger and fuller, to go from snappy exponential up to linear. And because it doesn't change time, it does it perfectly. I've done that before, and I found I have to kind of, you know, grab the decay time or fall time as I'm trying to move the shape as well at the same time. It's like trying to get the LFO and the rate switch. You find yourself, you lose sense of what you're doing, trying to focus so much on making it just do what musically seems to be what it should do.
I was just going to say that I suppose you could have, you can have your designer technician hat on and think, well, looking at oscilloscopes and, oh, it should be doing this. But then you've got to have kind of your musician side of you saying, well, actually, this is way more useful and more musical if it did this, rather than just looking at charts and graphs of what it should be.
Yeah.
I think that really is, I know you've come on, Andrew, and we're just sort of just praising you, throwing praise your direction. But I think that's really shone through on the new Qubit stuff, that I get the impression that you and other people at Qubit use this stuff in a musical sense, whatever style that is, but just actually use it regularly and interact with it. And I think that's probably what the sort of vision was at the start. I guess you were using existing modules and then thought, well, this is what we want. hence you guys coming and announcing this range, which is what's coming through this year. Do you guys perform out much?
We do, yeah. I mean, everyone, all the core people in Qubit are musicians. We started off as musicians and then got interested in the technical nature of things later and designing our own stuff. And so, yeah, everyone there performs pretty much on a regular basis and releases music and everything. And it's definitely a huge help because, like you said, I mean, it keeps us focused on the end result, which is ultimately creating music. You know, and you can't lose sight of that, no matter how much you want to dive into the technical aspect, which you need, and it's crucial, but you can't forget the end goal, and you can't forget that if you map it all out according to the numbers, it doesn't play out sometimes that way on the human side of it. So you got to have both, and that's what we try and focus on.
Yeah. Another module, again, just to continue singing praises, we all really like the Nano Rand.
Yeah.
Well, will that see a sort of new design, or is sort of Chance taken that idea and ran with it? Will we see another slim module, or is that not the sort of design goal for now?
Not in the foreseeable future. The idea was really to flush out everything we loved about the Nanorand and take it to the next level, and that's what the Chance is. And so for the time being, that's what we put all of our random energy into that, and we wanted to just stick with that one.
But I think it's a good idea. It's a good, you know, just because of size-wise, like it just lives in my live case, and it's replaced other modules that did similar functions just because the size is superb. But then you've got the beefier version, if you like. You know, it's almost like pointless trying to kind of, you know, they just do two different things size-wise for me. I think they're really good.
Definitely. Yeah, the Nanorand for me was always it was a little bit of a tease because it has all these really, you know, things that I thought were extremely cool, but I wanted separate outputs. You know, I wanted more of what it had. I wanted each algorithm to be simultaneously accessible. I wanted, you know, various things like that, multiple gate outs. And so those were really the concept that inspired the Nanorand, and attenuverters as well, because that's one thing on the Nanorand that always kind of killed me is there was no attenuator on the output, so you're always having to patch that. So that was the idea, was just really to fix all the things I always wanted after using the Nanorand a whole bunch, and that's what the Chance became. Yeah.
It's interesting you saying, Matthew, about it being small in the live rig. We all have that mentality of, I'm going to go out with 6U or 9U, I've got to get all this really small stuff in. But just brought the image of Greg's rack back up. And there's no escaping, and I don't mean this as a negative thing at all, just as we have been, it's praise for how usable they are. All the qubit modules in there are big, but you're getting a hell of a lot out of those 2 rows.
Yeah, that's exactly what I like about it. Is the space? It's very hands-on. All the stuff is very hands-on and invites you to play with it. There's the sort of stuff that Matthew does where he just likes to patch and let it run itself. But I really like to get hands-on with my modules as well, and all the qubit stuff really lends to that, especially with the attenuverters.
So was this a big part of your kind of design philosophy? You say that everyone at Qubit kind of is either involved in either playing or releasing. Was this a very conscious at the front of your kind of design?
Yeah, it definitely was. And for all of us, we started on the laptop, we started on the computer. And so Eurorack was really a way to get rid of the screens, get rid of the mice and the keyboards that we're using to create music all of a sudden, and make something that feels like an instrument, you know, that kind of, it's tactile, it's ergonomic, it feels good, and you're not staring at a screen. So we wanted it to have a beautiful, comfortable interface that felt good, as opposed to, you know, because that's really, to me, one of the beautiful things about hardware is that you have an instrument all of a sudden again. You're making electronic music, but it's on a dedicated instrument that has an interface for the purpose, as opposed to a generic interface like a keyboard or a mouse. And so that was definitely at the forefront of all of our thinking at Qubit, was the whole musician interface design sort of thing.
Yeah, cool. So I wanted to just quickly run down the range of modules and just which are out, what's coming later in the year. As I said earlier, at NAMM, you guys came and it was this sort of, this is our goal. And we're obviously seeing that come out through the year. I'll just pull some images up. So obviously there's the chord, which Greg's used. already, which is pulling 4 different voices out of, as well as chords. Rhythm generation in rhythm, again, 4 parts, CV over pattern, muting, variation options over CV or knobs. Sampling, which obviously marries with rhythm very well, sample player. Again, we've got, we should give him a little shout out actually. We've got Robin Rimbaud, Scanner, in the chat room there on YouTube, just talking about the qubit modules as well. I know he uses Wave Live. And actually on the phone to him yesterday, and he was just, I told him we were doing this chat, and he's just saying how much he loves it in his live case. Same as you, Greg, in terms of it's just so easy to manipulate, get your hands on. Anyone that hasn't seen Scanner, definitely go check out his work. Some really phenomenal performances and productions. We've got mixology, obviously to mix all this together. Contour, the way I've been playing it, like I said, it's one of those you kind of feel like you need 2. Once you've got one doing lots of tonal variation or, say, shaping of filters or sound selection, I kind of want another one for the mixing and panning side. It's just one of those that it just feels like it does a lot of what I've been patching a lot easier than anything else, for firing off sender mounts and panning well. There's also, but not on the website yet, the quad filter as well. Will we see that this year?
Yep, it's going to be going into production pretty soon.
Yeah, cool. And then the other thing I wanted to ask, keep it going, will we see any effects in this format? I think playable hands-on effects would be really cool.
We've been thinking about it. We have a couple ideas. Nothing concrete yet. So. Okay.
It's just nice to know it's sort of it's there on the back burner. Playable, really hands-on effects would be really cool.
Be good.
So yeah. Anyone else got anything to say about Contour?
Yeah, like you said, Ben, it's always, you think, oh, then another one. Yeah, I'm very much like that. You want it to kind of do one particular duties and then something else. But no, it's just been really great to play with. And I know we keep going on about the size, etc. But you can, that's why I did those 2 variants of the patch, if you like. One where it was kind of automatic and it did it itself. And I thought, no, I want to have a bit of fun now. So I kind of just did a variation of that, took the controlling parts of that so I could then get in there and use it. And like we all know, look at Ben's gear at the back of it. Once you start getting the deep patch, sometimes you physically can't get in there,
Yeah, it's almost, you're a bit snowblind almost, aren't you? This, I really like, for that reason, and I think this is why I love doing it so much, I love pulling patches. I don't know why. I know that kind of seems sad, but coming in the next day and listening to it, I've either recorded it or got what I wanted out of it. I like unpatching, and I think it's the sort of clearing the fog again, and then completely start from scratch.
Yeah.
And the Contour's like a nice little hub, just like any of the sort of performance mixers or more hands-on sequences where you can get in and really animate a whole patch quite quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't want to delve in too deep with other things for now, because that's a chance is going to be this second features show where we'll have a few examples again and so discuss where it's come from. We'll just leave on a teaser of that, I think. Just pull up the... Sorry, there we go. Yeah, so again, quad, random. You were saying you were using the coin toss a lot, Greg.
Yeah, the freeze and coin toss. If you have it patched, if you have those 4 outputs patched out enough within your patch, you can just hit that coin toss and change everything. It'll just completely change your patch. Really enjoying it. I won't say too much more.
Yeah. Have you, just to end on a really seamless link as we go through different stuff, have you had it patched into Contour?
Yeah, I have.
I like the idea of, maybe we'll do this in one of the patch examples. I like the idea of randomly changing all these controlling envelope times and then just being able to go that one and just freeze it.
Yeah.
Based on the Nanorand, I imagine Chance is going to be incredibly musical. I've not got one just yet, but here soon. But the Nanorand always felt, when clocked against other things, incredibly musical. All the random gates were multiplications or divisions of timing, triplets being introduced.
That's certainly what attracted me to it. That's what I first got, was as soon as I read about it, I thought, oh, this multiplications of the timing, etc. is just so useful.
Yeah.
And again, in a really neat size too.
Yeah. Cool. Well, people go check out the patch examples, 2 from Matthew and then 1 from me and Greg. There'll be separate videos, all linked below to go listen to. If anyone wants audio files or anything, let us know. No set date yet for doing the feature show on Chance, but watch out on Facebook and everywhere else for that coming. And thanks to Mark and Robin for jumping in the chat. Simon popped in. It's nice to get some interaction from people. So yeah, cool. Cheers for that, Andrew, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Andrew.
All right.
Nice one. Bye.